Hi, this is Vicki Romaine with Cheerful Greetings, and today we're going to make some real nature slides. I have a couple pieces of cardstock here, and when you look at them, you wonder, how on earth can I use them? This one is looks like a twisted straw or maybe knitting material of some sort, and it wouldn't fit in any particular theme. And this other piece kind of looks like a boarding of some sort, and that really doesn't fit my theme today either. So what happens when you cut these into smaller pieces? You will never recognize the same cardstock. And that's what I have done here. I have cut these into smaller pieces, and they look like they're distressed, and they look nothing like the original piece of cardstock. I am using the old 6 die. It has 4 images on it, and I'm going to show you what they are. They're little slide images, and they have different shapes. Here's one that's a square. Here's one that has a larger bottom than a top, and then I have one that has a circle in the middle, and I have another that has the same width at the top and at the bottom, which I will show in a few minutes. And I have cut out white cardstock. And the reason I have cut both white cardstock and my colored cardstock is because my white cardstock is fairly thin. It wasn't the real heavy cardstock. I have cut 2 of each of the patterns. And at the same time, I've cut 2 of each of the patterns with the designer cardstock. I will be fast forwarding the videos so that you can see the entire process without it taking so long. I am matching up my white cardstock with my decorative cardstock, and I'm using Aleene's Turbo Glue to glue the 2 sections together. You want to match up the 2 pieces as well as possible so there's no white showing. Now I have one side done, and I'm going to do the very same thing to the other. And as you can look at the slide pieces, you would not recognize that piece of cardstock that looked like twisted straw. I'm not going to use all the slides that I cut out, but I am going to show you a couple here. So I'm going to play some music while I put them together. I'm going to use some vintage photo distressed ink and my little tool, and I'm going to distress the outside. Even though the paper gives you that distressed feeling, I want to cover up any of the white that might be showing. Since my backyard is full of flowers, I'm going to use real flowers in my slides. Now, you don't have to use real flowers, but that's what I plan to do. This leaf is from what I call a pink dot plant, because all of the leaves have little pink dots on it. And so I'm going to use it for my first slide. What I've done here is check to make sure that I didn't pull a leaf that was too large. I wanted one that would fit inside the opening. What I have here is a piece of a laminating pocket. It's just one side, and what I've done is cut 2 squares that will fit on the side of my slide. And I put one on the bottom of my leaf, and I'm going to put one on top of my leaf. Now, when you do this, you want to make sure that the rough part of the laminating pocket is toward each other, and the outside should be the slick. So you put it together with a rough edge on the inside and the slick on the outside. And I'm putting it in what I call a carrier. In other words, I'm going to use it to go through my laminating machine, because the plant itself, or the slide, is going to be too small for it to go through the laminating machine without getting it stuck. So I will put it together. I'm making sure that it completely covers the little leaf. Now, I have run it through the laminating machine once, and since I've just turned the machine on, I'll be running this one through twice, so I'll make sure it's good and hot. I have run my slide now through the laminating machine twice, and as I open it up, you will notice that the slide is stuck to my carrier. This is because when I cut my 2 pieces of laminating material, I did not measure them and put them exactly even on top of each other. So one side was sticking out over the other, and therefore it stuck to the carrier. But I have trimmed it down, and so that is not a problem. What I'm doing now is trying to decide which slide I want my little leaf to go into. What I'm going to do is put some glue on the inside of the die cut. I'm going to be using Aleene's Turbo Glue, and I'm putting it directly on the slide. I'm making sure I cover it good. Then on top of that, I will place the laminating sheet that is holding my little leaf. And I put it in place like I want it. Now I'm putting glue on the other half of my slide. What I will be doing is encasing the leaf in between 2 slides. Now I have just noticed that I glued a square, and the slide I used was not a square. It was a square, but the top and the bottom were larger than the sides. So I've already got glue on the one, and I'm putting glue on the second square one, which I did not realize I had picked up by accident. So I already have glue on it. Now I'm going to get the right slide yet. And this is something that can happen to you if you're not paying attention to what you're doing, because I have different styles, and of course I want to match them up correctly. And we're finally getting it together, I think. And this is the way it's supposed to look. You're supposed to have the front and the back with the same pattern. And what I'm trying to do is match up my edges so the white doesn't show. Now here's my first little slide. Eventually I will embellish it maybe with a little word or maybe a number or something on it. But for right now, basically what I'm showing is how to make your slides. Now that I have my two squares already glued, I will fix the next slide out of the two squares. In the meantime, I put clips on the first one so that the glue will hold and be permanently set. Again, I'm getting my sheet of laminating paper, or material. It's not paper, it's more of a plastic. And I'm going to put a, let's see, I'm going to put a flower in it. And it will be a little thicker than the leaf that I used. So I'm going to have to put a lot of pressure on it. Now, if you notice, I am not drying the flowers. I'm doing them directly from the garden. So I'm not sure in a month or so what they'll look like, but for right now, they will have the color that I want, which is that natural color. Again, I'm putting my slide in the carrier, and we will be sending it through the laminating machine again. Now my machine is nice and hot, so I probably will only have to do it once. Okay, I've sent the inside of my slide through the laminator. Again, it's sticking because I did not measure my pieces of plastic. If you'll notice, I have part of the stem and it's stuck to the carrier. Again, I have enough plastic on it that I can go and trim the edges off. And that's what I'm going to do now. As I said, what it is one side of the plastic is larger than the other. Instead of sticking to the other piece, it's sticking to the carrier. And so we're just trimming it off. Since my flower, and especially the stem, are fairly thick, I'm going to send this back through the laminator. Not because it didn't hold, but I wanted to make sure that it is in there securely. And there's not much space around the edge of the flower and the stem. So I'll send it back through now that I've trimmed the edges. And you will notice when it comes out this time that it will not stick to the carrier because I've trimmed the edges. Now I have the center of my slide here. Running it through the laminator a second time made it really secure. So I'm going to put it in the middle of my two squares. And I've already glued a little bit on one of the squares. I can trim it off just a little more. Main thing when you do your trimming, make sure you have enough laminating material left over that it will stick to the slide and not be too small. This was a pretty thick flower, but I think it will do okay. I'm trying to center my flower inside of my die. And I put glue on both sides of the two pieces of die cut. Now here's my flower. I had a little piece of plastic left over sticking out the side, so I'm going to trim it off. I'm going to touch up the slide a little bit now using some distressed ink, and then my slides will be complete. Now here are my 4 slides with the real flowers and leaves inside. Well, actually, that's not really a leaf. It's part of the flower. The leaf itself is the flower of the polka dot plant. And if you don't have any flowers in your yard, you can always take a punch or a die cut and put it inside of your slide, and that will do just as well. You have to work with what you have. And so we'll just put this inside here and see, that looks nice also. But since my backyard is loaded with flowers, I wanted to use the real thing. Now, over time, these may change in color. I don't know. The one in the circle slide did change color a little bit when I ran it through the laminating machine. I don't know if it was the heat or what that kind of made it a little grayer, but it is a gray and blue flower. Now, I'm going to show you a close-up of these, and you can see how nice they look inside my slide. And see, that didn't lose much color, but it's not quite as bright as it was originally. This one has the stem still hooked to it, and the polka dot, I had it upside downwards here, and the polka dot plant is basically leaves, but they show up. You can see the polka dot in it. The leaf that was picked doesn't have a lot of pink in it, but you can tell that it is a variegated leaf. Now here they are, and I hope you enjoyed watching me make these slides. They are loads of fun to make. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please come back and see me. And in the meantime, have a great crafting day.